KSP fans, welcome back to Epic Space Program, Episode 3. Now, in our last episode, we managed to unlock a couple of things. We got our Staputnik probe and a dipole antenna that let us do a little bit of science using probes for the first time. We also, in our very last mission, last episode, we unlocked the solar panels and some of our science mystery goo containment units. And I said that this episode we would be trying to go to the moon. So we will attempt to do that, but we have a little bit of work that we need to do here around Kerbal. Because we're using RemoteTech, we need to make sure that we have some way to maintain constant communication with anything that we send to the moon. Otherwise, we won't be able to control it. And so that is where RoboProbo Mark II will come in. You'll see I've added solar panels, a couple of batteries, and I've also added these AIES antennas. Now, these antennas have a range of 15 million meters, which is plenty of reach to get to the moon. But of course, since KSC will rotate on Kerbin's surface, what we need to do is make sure that we have a few of these up out in orbit to maintain line of sight. So I've constructed a similar launch vehicle to our previous probe, but I've also added a second ascent stage, and so we're going to use this to put these into relatively high orbits between 500 and 600 kilometers. We're going to need about 4 of these in order to maintain constant coverage of KSC. So I'm going to go ahead and launch all 4, and then I will explain kind of how I did it. And now we have our satellite network. And as you can see, we have, at any given time, we'll have either 1 or usually 2 satellites covering Kerbal. And the way that I did this is basically you pick your orbital height, you pick your you figure out the number of satellites that it's going to take to give you coverage, and then you divide your orbital period by that number minus 1. So for 5 satellites, you would divide your orbital period by 4. And if you're using something like MechJeb or Kerbal Engineer or Vessel Orbital Information Display, any of those plugins will give you those orbital period, and what you want to do is just make sure that every satellite has the same orbital period. So in my case, I'm setting it to 1 hour and 5 minutes, because that's a nice round number near the altitude that I'm orbiting. And what that means is, even if your orbits are not perfectly circular, as you can tell, mine don't line up. They're close, but they're not perfectly circular. The relative distance of all of the satellites will remain the same through one complete orbit. They'll all stay about the same distance, and when you get back around to 1 revolution, they'll all be exactly in the same spot. So now we have a functioning satellite network, and we are ready to go to the moon. So I will see you back in the VAB, and we will continue our attempt at lunar science. Okay, so here is our Mooner version of the RoboProbo Mark II. So I've changed it up here to Mark III. fairly similar, except I've added the mystery goo containers, and I've swapped out one of the antenna. So I've put this little communitron on there. The reason I've done that is, even though the AIES antenna gives us 15 million meters in range, which is enough to get to the moon, this particular one will not transmit scientific data. It doesn't have the bandwidth. So we have to add this one. This one only has enough, this one only has about 2.5 million meters in range, which means we can use this one to control, and then we're going to have to come back within range of this antenna in order to actually transmit any science data that we managed to collect. So I'm going to go ahead. We'll meet you out on the launch pad, and I'm just going to go ahead and speed this all up and launch to the moon, and I'll meet you back in orbit. So we're in orbit now, and still have plenty of delta V left to go to the moon. Our plan here will be to get a lunar encounter, try and get a nice low pass. We're not going to orbit, we're just going to pass by, and then come back into transmission range to be able to send our science home. So we're going to set up a translunar injection burn. That's going to be the easiest way to do that. You just wait for the moon to come up on the horizon like it is right there. You turn prograde and you burn. You don't have to set up a maneuver node. You don't have to do any kind of calculations of angles or anything. Just like that, because it's on the 0% or 0 degree inclination, and it's close enough that you just have to get to a tangent and it works fine. So you'll see here as our orbit increases, we get a encounter very, very easily. There we go. And so I'm going to adjust our periapsis just a little bit. I want to try and come in really, really low, because I think if we come, I don't remember if you have to land to take advantage of the biome maps or for the science experiments, or if you just get low enough, if they'll start registering. But we'll try it here. Oops, that's the wrong way. Okay, 18,000, that's fine. So, we'll go ahead and zip on past here. Make sure that our solar panels are pointed toward the sun, because they don't move, they don't track with the sun, so we just want to make sure that they, at least a few of them, are pointed in a good direction as we travel out there, because we do not want to run out of power, because if we run out of power, we run out of control. So here we go. And you can see as we kind of speed up here, as the different satellites come into view, we have our different link back to KSC, but it's completely covered, so we never lose it, which is pretty awesome. I do like the RemoteTech mod. Alright, so here we go. Coming up on the moon's SOI here. going to come into the periapsis, slow down, do some science, and probably do a retro burn. We're not trying to circularize, but we are trying to make sure that we're not on an escape trajectory out of Kerbin's sphere of influence. All right, so let's do our science. And we're going to hang on to that. We can't transmit yet because we're not in range of our Communitron. But what we can do is burn backward a little bit. And see if we can keep an escape trajectory without having a Kerbin escape trajectory. Perfect. So what we'll do here, our periapsis is still within 15 million meters, so we'll still be able to communicate with the probe. We'll get there, and we will begin to lower our apoapsis at the low point there. So we're going to do this. Make sure when we come out from behind the moon that we're still pointed toward the sun. I think we will be. Yep. So our power comes back. And we're slower than we're moving slower than the orbit of the moon at this point, I believe. Well, I know we are because we're going further. So we shouldn't actually end up losing line of sight. We might get close, but the moon should pull ahead of us here soon. I hope it will. There we go. Oh, we ended up ahead of the moon. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and pull a retro burn right now. All right, so I'm going to start slowing ourselves down. Whoops, we weren't quite outside the... I should have thought of that. We weren't outside the moon's SOI. We ended up outside, or back in orbit. I don't want to do that, so... Well, I take that back. Now that we are... we're not in a stable orbit. All right, I'll just burn this back to an escape trajectory. I should really stop being sloppy about this. Okay. Get out to our escape orbit. Hopefully soon, before we lose contact again. And lower our apoapsis back into Kerbin's atmosphere. There we go. Okay, so while we're still high in deep space right now, I'm going to run our other experiment. There we go. Keep that. And get back in close enough. Go close enough that we can activate our Communitron and send back all of that lovely science. there we go. It's activated. Let's review our data. Transmit. I said, and maybe we're still not close enough. Oh, I wonder if it has to. I wonder if it can't transmit through the network. I don't know. Let's get a little bit closer and see what we're looking at. No comms device. Well, that's cute. What if I shut this one down now? I don't think that'll make any difference. There we go. Guess I don't know. Guess it got confused. So, we got the one. Let's review the other data. Send that. Transmit. Alright, and we've got our science. Now this will crash harmlessly back onto the planet. Let's go back to the Space Center and see what we can unlock. Okay, well we have 13 science, which I don't think is actually going to be enough to unlock anything, unfortunately. That was a rather pitiful amount of science, so I think the only option is going to be we're going to have to send a manned mission to the moon in the next episode. So that'll be for next time. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope at least the satellite network and the lunar mission were interesting, even though it didn't give us too much science. We will, if you have any ideas, again, suggestions, if you like the video, make sure you leave a comment below or subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next episode.